On behalf of the Economic Alliance Port Region, gentlemen, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. I feel a little bit like David Faraday, and I'm sitting here with Tiger and Ernie and Phil. So formal education, where you started. Mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, chemist. So a quick story, mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, chemist, all walk in the same bar together, and they order a shot of tequila. The mechanical engineer looks at the shot, and he says the vessel's appropriately filled, the clarity is right, drinks the shot, he says it's in specification. The chemical engineer does the same thing, drinks that shot, says that the residuals are less than 2%, the purity is in specification. And then the chemist drinks the shot, and he said it's 38% alcohol content, it's right in the middle of the specification. However, I'm going to need 8 more samples to validate the test result. So, you have impressive bios. You've run maintenance departments, engineering departments, big construction projects. You've worked all over the world. You've had international assignments. You've all been plant managers, and you have plant managers reporting to you. You're in that leadership position. Your bios are in the materials that our audience has today, but our Economic Alliance staff has done some crackerjack research, and we found out a couple of things about you that nobody else does. First of all, I'll start with Skarky. You were an Eagle Scout. Less than 4% of scouts are an Eagle Scout. How did that lead you into what you do today?
That's true. So actually, I am an Eagle Scout. You never stop being an Eagle Scout, right? So it's like being an Aggie. You never stop being an Aggie. So first question in the room, how many of you have been involved in scouting? Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, look at that. Look at how many folks are touched by this wonderful program, because scouting teaches us at a very early age what leadership really is, how to work with others, how to get along with others. And through my career, especially moving in from the university setting where, it's all about you, you're trying to get ahead, you're trying to do for yourself, and now you're moving into a group, an organization where you've got to work with other people. Now you understand how important it is to be part of a bigger group, something that's more important than you, working toward common goals and shared values. And scouting teaches us that. So just put a plug in for scouting, and if you've been part of it, please continue to support it. So Thanks for the question, Joe.
That's cool. So Jeff, a competitive swimmer, Texas A&M for 4 years, set national records. But I think what's interesting, if I understand this correctly, over the last couple of years, you've participated in several Ironman competition. I want to understand, Ironman competition is a 2.4-mile swim, okay, 112-mile bike ride, and then you finish that with a marathon, 26.2 miles. And you do that supposedly all in the same day, right? I mean, you don't start the first event in September and then go on to the run maybe in November and then finish all together. So I did a triathlon one time, a triathlon, small. I about drowned in Lake Erie, so I've got a lot of respect for that. Tell me about the discipline and how that translates into what you do today.
Thanks, Jim. It was really a good thing for me to get back into, getting to having some focus, talk about goal setting, right? I started doing triathlons about 6-7 years ago, and just really for physical health and stress relief, right? And I kind of got the bug, and after a few years of that, kind of the ultimate in triathlon is doing an Ironman. So I've been lucky enough to finish 2 of them within the allotted time period. But you talk about having demanding jobs like we do. I pretty much worked and trained, right? That was all I had time for. You're spending a lot of hours to prepare for that, but I'll say the sense of satisfaction of getting to the finish line in an Ironman is something that you just have to do it to know what it feels like, and it was really rewarding. So thanks for the question.
That's interesting. And James, so for most of us, when we came home from school, we kind of left academia behind, but not in your case. Your father, university professor, PhD professor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so education was always real important in my home. And my dad came off the farm in Louisiana and knew he was going to have a different life. And the only way he was going to get there was through education. And not only did he pass that to us, his children, but that was so important to him that it jumped generations all the way through. And my dad had 7 brothers and sisters. Of the 8 of them, he was the only one who went to college, and he got a PhD. Of the 33 grandkids on that side, only 5 of them have college degrees, of which we're 3 of the 5. And then if you go to his grandkids now, all 7 of them have college degrees, and all of them but 1 had advanced college degrees. So we knew that not only did he change his vision on life, but the vision of us as a family.
All right. Thanks, James. Well, now the audience knows you a little bit better, so we'll get into the industry questions. I'm going to start with you, Jeff. So you've been doing this for a long time. Over the last 5 years, there's been a significant amount of change. Tell us about that in the industry.
Well, a couple things that have really gone on in the last 5 years. The beginning with, there's a lot of retirements, right? We're getting to the age where over the last 5 years we've seen a higher than normal amount of retirements across the board, and we've had to hire at higher than normal rates. So the encouraging thing is that it looked very daunting, 5 years ago. We're kind of working our way through that, and when you look at the demographics of our workforce, both on the operator side as well as maintenance and construction crafts, I think for the next 5 to 8 years, we're still going to be at a really high rate. So that's something that we're in the midst of. It's going to continue on, but it's been a challenge for us over the years, especially when you add on all the talk we've heard just today and yesterday that everyone's aware of with the construction boom due to the shale gas advantage here. The demand is super high, especially on the construction craft side. So that's again, has been a big demand the last few years, and it's going to continue on.
And Steve, within the last 5 years, you took an expanded role, a global role with the company. So as you look at change, can you kind of paint a little bit of a global picture for us?
Yeah, so I work for a Japanese company, and we have facilities in Asia, Europe, and U.S. So when we're looking at new projects, we're always competing against those other facilities globally. And what I've seen now is that we have by far the lowest energy costs and the lowest raw material costs now. And even though they keep throwing other costs in my face, fixed costs and things like that, when you look at what it really costs to produce our products, it's all about raw material and energy. So we are much more competitive now than we've ever been on the global scale, just within our own company. So when we're competing against the other plants and other facilities, we definitely have a step up.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. James, you've got plants that you're responsible for in Port Arthur, Longview, Houston, and I believe a plant up in northern Illinois. Tell us about that. What do you see with those geographies and the changes in the last 5 years?
Well, and one of the things that I would echo everything the guys to my right said, but one of the other changes that we see is people are connected much more now than they were. And so where we thought I needed to have one of those, whatever one of those was on my site, maybe I don't. Maybe I have a way now that technology, and we're able to use it such that we can connect people in different regions of the state and even the country to help get the best knowledge, the most capable knowledge to whatever problem that we may have and be facing. And that's probably one of the changes I've seen that's really taken off in the last several years.
So Steve, with those changes, what do you see the workforce of the future? Kind of paint us a picture.
Yeah, so I think the workforce of the future is going to be filled with folks who are much more technically savvy than have been in the past and even today. When you look at what they have to deal with, a huge amount of data and information coming in to them, they have to be able to quickly process and make decisions. So we've got to have folks who are able to deal with decision analysis and be able to handle all this information overload that they're facing every day.
Steve mentioned data. Any comments on manufacturing 4.0 or big data that you might be looking at Flint Hills, Red Dow?
Well, for us, and actually Rich Wells commented on it a bit yesterday in his speech at Dow, we're doing a lot of work in future and innovation and technology improvement. So some of that is around automation of processes, being able to better utilize the information that we already have and to be able to use that to help control the processes and information that's out there. So a lot of opportunity there, in in ways to more effectively use that information going forward.
Yeah, it's amazing where we've come from and where we're going to relative to efficiencies, productivity, quality numbers, on-time delivery to customers. Jeff, the question about what's the workforce going to look like in the future? What do you see?
Well, one thing we need to see and help make happen is we don't have, quite frankly, enough women in our workforce, right? So, you look at engineers, and things have changed a lot in the last 30 years, and that has been great. In general, our workforce is very diverse. It matches the community at large, but not in the female population, so especially operators, maintenance, and the other crafts. So I think in the local community colleges, there's only about 7 or 8% women in the P-Tech program, and we're missing out in that area. So we've got to get out in the schools back into middle school more than we're doing now, junior high, high school, make sure that people understand our industry, and not just women, but everyone, about the good jobs that we have and what's possible out here. But it's something that we've got to do better at going forward.
Yeah, in our technology programs at San Jacinto College, our female enrollment is 13%, so it's improving. It's about double what it was 5 years ago, but we've got a long way to go. Steve, I know you and James have been out in the schools. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you pitch coming into work at a plant, the technology, the interest of chemistry and physics, math?
Yeah, and I think it's where have not done as good as we could have done in the past is making this industry attractive to people, understanding how good of a job this is. Now, you also got to recognize you're not going to come in and start at the top, but you've got to work your way there and develop those skills and the talents that in turn, as he talked before on the economic side around supply and demand, that applies to you as a person. How do people demand or want your skills, and how are you going to raise your game to in turn be desired as an employee? And so I think with us being in the schools is continuing to talk about how great of a life I've had being in this industry, right? And that's the best way I know to describe it to people.
Yeah, I'll add on to that and say I really like to talk about the stability of our industry, the potential for growth, and for them the potential for personal growth, to be able to have a career, to do things that you would never be able to do otherwise, and to provide for your family, to have the good work-life balance, and just have the life that you've always dreamed of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think ultimately we need a community that's proud of the industry and really recommends family, friends to come work and good jobs without having to have 4-year degrees, right?
Yeah, a while back, one of my mentors said, the community allows us in their neighborhood, so we need to be good neighbors. And that's just not hiring and paying taxes. It's all the things that you all do out in that community.
Yeah, it's a permission to play within the community, and we have to understand that.
Yeah. And you talked about stability. So I believe the growth in the chemical industry globally is about double GDP. So it certainly shows the amount of capital that y'all are spending in the business. So tell me about the Gulf Coast. So what does success look like in the workforce of the Gulf Coast? What's that going to look like?
Well, I think, if you look and you'll hear the Coke companies talk a good bit around what success looks like, and there's really the sustainability, number one, of the industry, and making sure that indeed we are the good neighbors that people want us in their backyards. They want their family members to work for us. They know it's a safe place to work, a place where they can come home from work, make a good living, and in turn supply and provide for their families. I think that's clearly what it looks like in the future. And 10, 15, 20 years from now, we are, as Jeff described, a little more diverse than we are today.
I guess for me, I'm looking ahead at 5 to 10 years when a lot of us may not be here, right, in the future. And how are we going to hand that off to that generation. Who's going to be stepping up to take over? It's got to be seamless. It's got to be safe. We've got to have the right culture. We've got to keep the same standards and keep elevating those standards. And it's up to us to do that. Through our leadership, we've got to develop those who are coming behind us. So I think that's our challenge.
Steve, you mentioned safety. How'd the plants get so safe? How did we get to where we got? Our industry is either number one or number two of all industries. How did we get there?
Yeah, I think there was a revelation years ago that safety is part of business, right? It's not just something else we do. And of course, we've all learned to care about each other. So safety is something we do for ourselves, we do for our brothers and our neighbors, but we also know it's just good business. And we've developed that. We've used it as a strategic business initiative to even make us more competitive.
James, tell me about soft skills. We frequently talk about teamwork and reliability. When you look to hire some new candidates, tell us what you're looking for in soft skills.
We clearly have to have people that can work in a team environment, because they got to realize it's not all about them. It is about them. It's just not all about them. And, the ability to work with others and communicate with others, as Steve described how safe the industry has become, that's all part of how we do that. Now, the other word I'm going to use, and this one we don't use in refineries and petrochemical plants very much, but it's called did I set something off by saying it? It's the word self-actualization, where we're looking for employees that really want to be lifetime learners, really how do they develop their talents to their fullest extent and help bring it to the workplace with us. And so as we talk about technology changing, the ability to learn and utilize technology and their ability to, how do we apply that to our processes, and how do we help apply it even to the safety and environmental performance of our facilities all the way through is kind of one of those new areas that we're really reaching into as a company, so that we assure our employees, number one, get fulfilled out of that, but are using their full potential.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the point where we consider the technical, the hands-on skills as being a bare minimum. And so, I don't think we can underemphasize or overemphasize the importance of the soft skills, right? We talk about emotional intelligence. I looked that up. I said, well, what does that really mean? It's around handling conflict, right? Being able to work in teams, being able to assess our new hires for their ability to really operate well, what's their work ethic, what's their safety ethic, and being able to get that experience and relationship with them at a point in time where you really can understand what kind of workforce you're going to have, right?
Yeah. One of the enjoyable things for me was when we get those teams together almost every day, and the diversity within the team. People that were representing the business and maintenance and engineering and operations all coming together and with a solution. You've all been plant managers. Plant managers often lead the culture of a site. Tell us a little bit about the priorities of a plant manager. James?
Yeah, priorities. So the number one thing you have to learn as a plant manager is there's a bunch of balls that'll be bouncing every day, and you can't let one of them drop. And so when you talk through priorities, truthfully, we want it all. I don't just want a little bit of it, I want it all, and I believe I can get it, but I get it through the people. And so number one, it's really how do I take care of the people, and how do I make sure they understand what our mission is. Number one, that they're safe, because that's, they deserve it and their families demand it. And so with that is safety of the employee. How am I listening to them, and what problems are they having, and how can I help solve those problems? The minute they quit bringing you your problems, you're really no good to them any longer. And with that, that applies to every bit of our business, and we want to be profitable. Profit is what allows us to stay in business, to reinvest, help assure sustainability of that site, and good job for the people that reside there, because we've seen, in our history, those that were not. And so we want every bit of that.
Similar approach in Asia when you're in your plant, Steve?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things I guess I learned as a plant manager and through my leadership studies is there's two basic principles. One is you make a difference, and the second is you can't do it alone. So you're going to make a difference one way or the other. It's going to be positive or negative. So it's up to you to make sure you make the choice. What kind of difference am I going to make in my organization? And you definitely can't do it alone. As a plant manager, I probably didn't do very much by myself that was of much value to the company. It's done through others. So you're doing things through others. So it's all about inspiring and being motivating and inspiring. So and I find that wherever I go, whatever culture, it's kind of the same. Whether it's Malaysia or Japan or in Belgium, it's the same model, right? We have to be leaders within our organization and support and serve the folks who are in that plant.
And Jeff, your 4 plants are all in the greater Houston area, but they vary on size. So is there a different approach?
Well, I mean, there is really the approach for those 4 plants is overall the same, right? Each plant, as we all know, has a little different culture, maybe in a different place, and so you have to adapt your programs and your strategy, but then also leverage things that do really impact everyone. And so most things, fortunately, can be leveraged across all the sites. One thing I wanted to add on to the comments that were just made around priorities, one new program that we've really taken off on the last year or so. We don't talk enough about the health and environmental health and safety, so we've got some programs around total worker health, right, which includes diet, both at work and at home. You know, what are people eating, what food's available for folks to eat, having healthy food options, you know, the benefits of education, of basic, you know, physicals and things like that, weight, you know, management. So there's some things like that. Now, those are programs that we implement across all the sites. Really, Dow overall is working on those things. So fortunately, we've got some initiatives that we can get a lot of leverage with all the employees.
Well, when your most important asset is the people, you need to keep them healthy.
Yep.
And that's not easy because we've all had a lot of meals in the kitchen at shift change and not necessarily
Not
the most
always
healthy
the best.
cooking.
Yeah.
But very good tasting. Yeah, in fact, we've got culinary experts in most of our plants, don't we? Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the soft skills, but you know, the plants are complex, right? You can't run a plant with all the things that go on around physics and math and chemistry. Tell us about if you were going to enhance a technical skill of a new hire, whether that new hire be a process technologist or instrument analyzer, or one of your new engineers, and you were going to do something a little different on the technical side. Jeff, do you have something there that you'd like to maybe move forward?
I think the biggest area of opportunity, at least for some of the community colleges, is around getting more hands-on skill, right? It can't just be the classroom. The new facility that San Jack is building is going to be tremendous to give those in school with the experience they need to be out there in the field, knowing what it's like to turn valves and recognize all the equipment and simulate as much as possible what it's going to be like when they show up at work and understand what a permit process looks like, or other aspects of that. So some of the community colleges have those facilities already. That's great. If you don't, you really have to find companies to partner with on internships, getting employees, getting students out in the plants before they show up. It's amazing how many of them have never even stepped foot in a facility, and they've got their 2-year degree. So I think we've got to do better in that around providing opportunities for students to get out there on internships or to simulate that the best we can while they're in school.
And Dow has a pretty active apprenticeship program. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, Dow, for the U.S., implemented an apprenticeship program. We partner with San Jack on that, and that's a program where we hire both process techs and instrument techs while they're in school, and we basically pay for their school and they work about half-time, and they go to school about half-time. So we're essentially paying for school as well as paying them for work and to some extent for their time in studying. And I'll tell you, we had the first group come out. It's a 3-year program because it takes a little longer to finish if you're working, that much. But they're coming out and they're ready to go. I mean, they're essentially qualified on their first job right when they graduate from school. So we've eliminated that, that 6 to 9 month initial training program, and they are learning and applying the knowledge as they go along. Now, fortunately, it's a little expensive for us to do that, right? So we can't, we have a limited number of people that we can run through that program, but it's been really successful so far.
Yeah, well, thank you, and congratulations on that. Now, Steve, your site is unique because it makes so many different products. So when you look at the technical side of that, what do you like to bring home with that new hire?
So one of the things that I really want to see is that we're doing a better job in training, understanding of process safety in their job every day, and especially in the curriculum that they're learning in school. So things like risk analysis and management of change, these things that have to be consistent throughout the organization. And these are the tools we use that have made us so safe today, that have really advanced our technology and safety. So it shouldn't just be the engineers involved. We've got to get everyone involved. So I want to see the technicians take a larger role in PSM management.
Yeah, excellent. And I want to congratulate you as an industry, all collaborating on that particular standard and working together. James, you've got 4 plants operate quite independent, but your PDH plant, propylene dehydration, has a ton of technology loaded in. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's, I won't tell you all of our technology.
The Koch brothers might take issue with that.
I'm sure there's a camera going somewhere. I'd have a bad feeling it
I
would show
tried
up
to
at
get
the
a
wrong
little
place.
intellectual property here.
But what it is, it's a very large facility with very few people. And it was originally built, and it was an olefins plant, the back end, and a company called Petrochemical did the design, and in turn, at that time, was the largest on-purpose propylene producer in the world. And so as you see those 8 big reactors that are there, and all the technology that goes into making propylene, just give you a little statistic, it takes 140 18-wheelers of catalyst to fill those reactors. And so you'll look at how much it is, and you go, they look pretty big from the highway. Well, if you stand up next to them, they look a lot bigger, and especially as you empty catalyst and put it back in. So with it, there's a lot of unique technology that we've been able to apply. And we've leveraged some of the other Coke companies, which is, as the second owner, that's what we look as we become the next owner. How do we become the next best owner? And for us, it was able to bring the other Coke companies to bear and improve and continuously improve that process.
Excellent. Jeff, what attracts the best candidate?
Well, I think, there's a lot of good companies on the ship channel, right, in this area. So we are all trying to differentiate ourselves, and you have your company name and your pay and benefits, and there's a little variation in those things. But one of the ways that I think we all try and do is to build a relationship with students early on, right? Whether that's through an apprenticeship program or internships, or even just getting out in the schools and making yourself available. We've got employees that spend time out there, and it might be as simple as me agreeing with you to bring a busload of students out for a tour of the site, right? And then they've at least been in the plant, and maybe that makes a difference in the future when they're deciding who to come work for, right? So there's we've got to do all those things to make ourselves attractive to potential new hires.
Do you talk much to your new hires about your product and your customers down the line, Steve? Because again, you've got a pretty diverse portfolio.
Yeah, of course we do, and it depends on the different areas. So we make everything from commodities to specialty polymers to nutritional supplements. So especially in that area where we're producing coenzyme Q10 in some of the world's largest biofermentation reactors, we take a long time talking with employees about how important their job is to make sure this product is perfect, right? It's safe, it's clean, it's because it's going to go in someone's body. So when we talk about level of quality, it's very different in that conversation than it is when we're talking about PVC, right? So those kind of things that we make clear to our employees, they need to understand, where's that product going from here? Why is it important? Who are they touching? Where's it going to go next? And who's depending upon them to do their jobs correctly?
So tell me a little bit about the competition. We've got 130 plants in East Harris County. We've got about 55 over in Golden Triangle. So I'm sure there's some competition locally. But tell us a little bit about how you look at that competitive space, how you grow, and what the global footprint looks like as you move forward. Jeff, we heard from your boss yesterday. It's exciting to be with Dow and DuPont. And I think many of us, when y'all came together, was just a complete surprise. And you've got a lot of movement going forward. Tell us about that competitive space.
Well, I think we heard about it in the last session with Steve as well around our, as an industry, as a Gulf Coast region, we have a challenge around our cost of construction for new projects. And I think as a whole, that's something that we need to work on, we are working on. I'm on the ECMA Board of Directors and very active in the workforce development, and I believe that the quality of the skilled, workforce, especially in the construction crafts, is a key to us not allowing us to lose that advantage we have on our raw materials and the low-cost raw materials we have. So, we've got to get better there. I think as we train more, we develop the workforce. We've got teams that are working on what we need to really do to develop the workforce in that area, to really get back to where that's an advantage again for us, where I think it was at one time, but to get the productivity, the quality of the work, even back in the EPCs companies, right, having the design engineers and so on that can deliver projects that are high quality and all the way through the process. So I think that's a key for us going forward.
We only have a few minutes left, and we haven't talked about continuous improvement, and I know that's in your vernacular. So what's that look like at your 4 sites, James?
So part of our continuous improvement, in fact, as soon as I get off this stage, I'm going to go be working on, we always are looking toward our 5-year plan. And really, our 5-year plan is always based upon what are we doing to improve. And that's on every area that we have. When I say we want it all, and we believe we can get there. But it's only through being determined and not being set back on, that's safety. We will never, ever arrive. On environmental, we will never, ever arrive. But it's a journey that we continue to get better, and we believe it's important for us to get better for the industry's sake and for our survivability, truthfully. And if you're not continuously getting better, and as you saw, we have a hydrocarbon advantage in the U.S. today, but it will not always be there. The market will always correct itself over time. And so we've got to be, while we've got this time up, we've got to continue to push such that we're ahead of the rest of the world as they come in and compete with us with our products.
And that continuous improvement in most of your plants, you have as many contractors potentially in your site as you have direct employees. The contractor base in Houston, I would argue, is maybe one of the best in the world. Jeff, any comments on how closely you work with your contractors to improve efficiency, quality, safety?
Yeah, I mean, we really do our best to include the contractor workforce, especially the nested ones that are there with us all the time, to be really fully integrated into the work we do. So the programs that we're rolling out internally are often quite the same that we take to the contractor workforce. And we have the contractor leaders sit in part of my staff meetings when we're talking about environmental health and safety performance, and including them in there so they're hearing it directly and can take those messages and deliver them out. So, I think that's the key, is to really do your best to treat everyone the same and make sure they're hearing the messages and all the way through and have the right priorities.
If I can add to that, I'd like to put out a big thank you to all the ACIT members who might be in the room. This is a group that works very closely with us and Texas Chemical Council, and involved in all the committees we do: occupational safety, process safety, air, environmental, water. And so it really is a cooperative effort between industry and those supporting industry that make us strong. And I really believe that's one of our biggest competitive advantages here on the Gulf Coast.
All right, thanks. Well, having been around the industry for a while, I still look at the industry in wonder and in amazement. One of the things we heard yesterday was more than 90% of more than 90% of the things we have in our life are touched by your industry. And again, on behalf of people that host this event, just want to thank you all for your leadership, for the products that you provide, and just making our community just a great neighborhood. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.